what's your take on Brian Armstrong?
Brian just doesn't strike me as very bright. Uh, I think he liked Bitcoin early for his own reasons. I think he's probably a very nice guy, but he's just kind of a waffler. Like he was all, Coinbase is a Bitcoin only company, and then okay, Coinbase is a Bitcoin and Ethereum only company, and then it was, then we hired Charlie Lee, and here's Litecoin in the offering, and then it's like, okay, now we're just this giant shitcoin tumbler, and and like that's fine, but he always comes out with a very strong position on a thing that seems to be based on principle, and then he undermines his own principle months later, and doesn't really seem to understand how hypocritical his behavior is about a lot of things. And so um, I've really come to the conclusion over time that he just is. I think he's a guy that got very lucky to have a good brand that got funded early, and he's done very well for himself. And I think it was largely by accident. And now at this point, the company has a ton of very talented executives and operate like people that know how to make that business successful. And he's a little bit like, I can't believe I'm the CEO of this thing. Is mostly my opinion on Brian.
What about the regulation? Because it seems like being in the US, having all the checks and balances, it seems a lot more regulated than like an FTX, which was in the Bahamas or something, right? Yeah. Do you think they're in the clear from a fraud perspective? I mean,
not really. I think it's such a cowboy industry that even though, I know they have their bank license and some of these other things, and they've applied for tons of the regulatory stuff, they're trying to get in front of it. And I think that that's the right thing to do from a business operation standpoint. But I still, just thinking back about like with Charlie Lee and Litecoin, for example, like it's a clear violation of like insider trading and nepotism and all these other things. But it happened so early that just like everyone at the time was like, well, yeah, it's crypto's a giant scam, and like good for him, man. Charlie made a big exit. Like the culture was just very into it, basically. At the time, we even had a similar thing with the Bitcoin Cash listing. There's sort of there's an old relationship between Brian and Roger Ver. And then so Bitcoin Cash had like this massive pump on Coinbase the day that it was listed, and I maybe even flipped BTC for a moment, and then they like froze all trading and wouldn't let people sell. And then when they turned trading back on, it had just reflipped. And like, so it's just like stuff like that, which is clearly violation of all kinds of trading laws and stuff. But if nobody sues, because again, a lot of people were using even Coinbase and saying like, yeah, but it's crypto, I'm not going to pay my taxes, I'm not going to do all these things. And so I think a lot of people are like, well, if I sue him, then I need to admit that I was sort of in on part of this grift. And so I think they very precariously done well, because everybody involved has been a little bit shifty. And if you're going to make it a problem for them, it kind of makes it a problem for everybody. And so there's a little bit of the circle the wagons mentality. But at a certain point, it's like the same thing with Tether or the same thing with anybody else. You get, the New York Attorney General's office or something, just somebody there like shines their shoes every morning. They're like, you know what? Like there is too much nonsense going on over there. I'm going to make my career on bringing down Coinbase. And if you get an AG that has that attitude, I think Coinbase has a ridiculous amount of skeletons in its closet too. And if you go looking for them, I think very quickly it's plea deals and okay, like I'll plead guilty to these 4 or 5 things if I can get away from jail time. Like it's somebody just has to look. And I think it's coming. I really think it's coming for basically everybody eventually.